I teased my dad about that later in life. I said, now, Dad, how do you pay for a baby on an installment plan? My dad arranged with the doctor that he would pay the doctor the bill in full by paying him every month what he could afford to pay. I had 2 kids born at that same hospital. We had pretty good insurance when they were born, and it took hours to fill out the paperwork. My dad did all that with a handshake. He didn't want help from the government. He didn't want help from anybody else. He was willing to pay his own bills, but he knew that he needed a little bit of extra time, and the doctor was willing to do that, and it was a simpler time. They came halfway across the world, landed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, not knowing anybody. My father was determined to get a job. He had the confidence that if you were willing to work hard, you could get a job. Literally opens up the yellow pages and starts calling company after company, asking them to hire him. Finally gets a company that accepts him, that hires him based on that phone call. And I love this confidence. Right before he hangs up, he goes, okay, that's great that I've got the job. But he goes, by the way, I don't have a car, I don't have a driver's license. So he tells his future boss, you're gonna have to come pick me up so I can go to work every day. And the guy was so taken by his confidence and his passion to work that he actually did that. It was a little railroad company, and that was my dad's very first job. It was what he needed to do to pay the bills. But you know what's so amazing about my dad? He was one of 9. He was the first and only one to get past the 5th grade. You know, as my brother and I, as we were growing up, my dad would always tell us, now, sons, I'm not gonna give you a famous last name. I'm not gonna give you an inheritance. I'm gonna make sure you get a great education. And now that I've got my own kids, I understand what my dad was trying to teach us. And the point of that is that in this economy, in this aspirational society, we are not giving equal opportunity to every child unless they get a great education. We had grown up during that oil bust, and so many of our friends had to leave to find good jobs, to get a good education, and it really wasn't practical. We wanted to be in Louisiana, but there just weren't the opportunities. There happened to be a governor's race going on at that time, and it was frustrating. There were a lot of good people running, but nobody, it seemed like, to us, was saying what needed to be done. Nobody was being aggressive or ambitious enough, and instead of complaining about it, we decided to do something about it. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. The reality was I'd never run for anything before, never done a poll, never had to raise any money, didn't know what I didn't know about politics, but I did know that I wanted to help fix my state. And I did know that I was willing to tell voters the hard truths. And so we went back, we quit my job, we went back to Baton Rouge, we announced the campaign, and we shared with the folks, we shared with the people in Louisiana why we wanted to create a better state so that our sons and daughters didn't have to leave home to pursue their dreams. The sad truth is that if you're in your 50s, America ranked #1 in education when you were growing up and getting your education. We no longer rank #1, and that's simply not acceptable. But I think it's more than an economic imperative. I believe providing a great education to every child is a moral imperative. It really comes down to 2 basic things. Number 1, let the dollars follow the child. Don't make the child follow the dollars. Now, what does that really mean? Every child learns differently. Some kids will do great in online schools, some kids will do great in charter schools, some kids will do great in traditional public schools. The second thing you've got to do is put a great teacher in every classroom. We should treat teachers as the professionals they are. We shouldn't simply hire them and pay them based on how long they've been breathing, how long they've been in the classroom, as opposed to how well they're doing. So in Louisiana, we've restructured our compensation, our tenure, our other laws to say we want to recognize and reward teachers based on how well their students are learning. We've done several things to give more choices to more kids, and the program is incredibly successful. Started with a couple of thousand kids in New Orleans. It grew to 10,000 kids applied last year. 5,000 were placed statewide. This year, it grew even more. 12,000 kids applied. Over 8,000 have been placed, and it's growing more and more. Look, in Washington, they love to talk about things, and very little, if anything, gets done. In our states, you're seeing amazing reforms, whether it's pension reforms, school choice, you're seeing taxes being cut, budgets being balanced, you're seeing private sector jobs being created. At the state level, we look our voters in the eyes, we go and see them where they work, where they live, where they play, and we make commitments to them, and then we live under the same rules and laws we pass for everybody else. Republican governors are driving America's comeback.